Welcome to Moonlit Conversations with Hearts, Minds, and Families. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed. We hope you enjoy the episode. This episode today is a bonus Women's Day episode, so happy Women's Day. The topic that we chose was to discuss the question, how has your view and your notion of being a woman changed as you have become a parent? And we asked we were kind of late to asking. We're kind of late to asking. We meant to ask it earlier in the week. So we have a few responses and we will discuss how we feel about it. Shanila got some responses. Shanila, what kind of responses did you get?
A lot of them actually talked about how they started to value their role more and how worthy they were. One person said, I have a responsibility to be my best self and protect myself for me and my children's sake. I like that.
That's a really good one. That's really true because a lot of people don't feel like what they're doing is important in life. And some people do value and value being a mother. And I wonder sometimes if that is an ingrained thing that we have in our head, like we don't have purpose until we are a parent. What do you guys think about that?
I think that we're so confused by the messages we get growing up that I think we feel just less worthy in general. Mm-hmm. And then when we have kids, we're kind of forced to deal with those things. And then we kind of find our worth in that because we see our children. It's like the same way we grow up and then we start to see our parents as more human. Mm-hmm. I think our just perspective on everything changes. So I don't know that it has that effect. Like having kids makes us feel more worthy or I think it's the growing up that made us feel less worthy. And then like having children opens up our eyes to new things is kind of more what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't deal with a lot of the issues that I had inside until I had kids. And a lot of things I didn't even realize that I had. Like, you think that you are prepared to be a parent, but then you don't realize that the ways about you and the things about your life that you haven't dealt with, that you haven't talked about, that you just kind of repressed, and then they come up when you have kids. So I agree with that.
Because you don't have time to deal with it. But then like you have kids and you're just exhausted. Yeah. So all that effort and energy that you put into suppressing it is just gone. You don't have it anymore. True. So it just kind of comes up to the surface and then you're forced to do it.
That's really true. And the things that they do trigger you. And I often find the things that trigger me are qualities about myself that I haven't dealt with that 100%. Show up in my kids, especially my older one, because he's just like me in a lot of ways.
Shanila, what else did you get?
We are stronger than we were ever told.
Yeah.
I like that one.
That's a really good one because I feel that a lot of people don't value what moms do. And in society, especially when we were growing up, being a mom was not really valued in any large capacity. It was just seen as something that was done. And now that's kind of shifting a lot.
Yeah. Is it really shifting? Is it really shifting?
Or is it just in my mind that I'm seeing
it is funny in that way, though. I always say that, like, I tend to surround myself with people and the things that I want to learn about and, like-minded ideas. And so I start to have this altered worldview, like people are thinking more like me or something like that, when it might not be so. It might just be my little world that I'm locked up in. But I do think social media makes the world seem a little bit smaller, and ideas are getting out much more quickly and catching on a little bit better. Like even just, I always bring up TikTok now, but even just on TikTok, there are men constantly on there talking about the things that they have learned about women and how they appreciate it. And just an example of something that I saw just last night, a man was talking to other men. He's like, if you don't understand what it's like to be a woman, just like walking around in the world, like imagine you have $100,000 in your pocket. or not even in your pocket. He's like, you're just holding it in your hand. Everybody can see it. So you're walking around with something that everybody around you wants. So that feeling that you have that somebody might just come up to you and try to take it at any moment, that's the feeling women have just walking around the world all the time.
Wow,
And
that is
so-
a really good analogy.
Yeah, because he said that it happened to him. Like he had a large amount of money. I don't think it was $100,000. And it was just in his pocket. And he's like, I was in the situation. He's like, and it dawned on me right in that moment because I was so hyper aware of my surroundings. Like, man, this is what women feel like all the time because they have something that men want and they don't know which man is going to try to come and take it.
What do you think that is? Or did he explain what that would be? What they're
women-
trying to take?
I mean, I imagine it's sexually motivated.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
That's what I took away from it too.
Yeah.
And I think
Sorry, I'm
another
having a
person
hard
said that I didn't realize that I really have an entire village. So
Oh.
that told me that, that we live in a global village and we're connected and we're going through the same thing. So you're really not alone. And I think once we become mothers, then we realize that, hey, there are other people who are going through the same thing. We connect with like-minded moms, and then we create our own village.
Yeah.
I like that. That's really nice because I didn't immediately feel that way, but I can see how now social media connects you to people because you can try to connect to other people and kind of bounce ideas and bounce situations off of somebody that you don't have to be right next to be able to connect to them and to build your village in that way.
Absolutely. For a long time, I felt like I just wasn't the type of person to want a village. Like I wanted to just do it on my own. I felt the same way with homeschooling. Like I just prefer to do it on my own, but it just turns out I didn't have the right women around me. I didn't
Right.
have the right people where I felt like I wasn't being judged. And there was just, empathy and open arms and somebody actually ready and willing to help without any ulterior motives. So finding the right village is very, very important.
I made my own village. I was never a follower, but I'm not a leader as well. But I think I always, I like people. I really like people. I follow them in a sense that I take the good advices. I have the susceptibility of falling into wrong circles. But that would frustrate me. And that's why, like you said, we did not find the right kind of people. And my observation about myself, if I look at myself, is at first I did not know what my path is supposed to be as a parent, as a woman. But when I finally grew to know, why did that even happen? Did it happen because I was intrigued by another woman? Yes. But was she my friend? No, she was an outsider. And I observed her and I basically did my own detective work. And then I said, okay, fine, this is something that's interesting. And that's how I started the journey of homeschooling. Even if Quran, if I understand that, how did I come to become spiritually aware, study Quran? Again, I'm not a follower. Yeah, I'm not the tribe kind of a girl. I wasn't. This is my tribe. The people that I'm talking to, Mariam, Shanila, and Sima, alhamdulillah. Now I follow. Now I fall back. Now I ask for advice. Now I exchange ideas. But I think it had to do a lot with my personality. My personality over the years has changed a lot.
But why do you think that you're not a leader?
I don't think that I'm not a leader. I mean, I always make a new path. I know that. Alhamdulillah. I always make a new path. I always say, okay, this can be done. This can be done. Let's do this. Why not try this? Let's try this. But I say that because I don't want to impose that you need to follow my idea. You like to follow? Let's walk together. I don't know. There's something that makes me uncomfortable being a leader because I think I'm more scared of falling in the mind of people. Like, if they put you, because that's happened to me so many times, that you put somebody on a mat and then they fall and then your heart breaks.
So you just feel like
I'm scared of that.
Associating the word leader with it comes with a lot more responsibility, maybe.
Yeah, it does. And as a parent, I'm fine with that. But when dealing with women or men or in the field. I'm like, yeah, okay. Trendsetter is better. Trendsetter is better.
I like that. Trailblazer.
Yeah.
Trailblazer.
Always finding new paths.
You know, I think we don't really know fully what we're up against and what we're supposed to be sometimes until we have kids. But how about people who don't have kids?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They can still be fulfilled and find their purpose as a female.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because there's so much for us to do. I think the blessing in when you're a parent, if you're a parent, if you have that blessing of being a parent, then you long for that, because that's something that you do for yourself. That's a self-care that you long for. So if, you know, there's certain things that we talk about when I do coaching, and I'll ask moms who are burnt out, what do they do for themselves? What brings them meaning and purpose? And usually people who are burned out, they'll say not enough or not something that's fulfilling them. So when they lack abundance in another part of their life, it shows up in their parenting. Mm-hmm. And once that shows up, that's an indicator of like, hey, I need to go find my passion or something that I love, serve, do something for myself, because that's what's really watering the plant. And then the benefits are shown with our kids and our family.
Absolutely.
So
I do the
kids
same.
could be, they show you their your weaknesses and your strengths through your parenthood journey. I think that was amplified for me, where certain things I was unsure of and sure of, and what I didn't know, and the kids brought it out. I mean, you couldn't just suppress it, because it was just like right there. You have to deal with it, like Seema said.
And I think it's interesting too, because if you don't have kids, and that transition can really be so much more gentle. You know what I mean? You can kind of gradually discover yourself and move into it and take things one step at a time if you so choose to do so. But being fulfilled, you can absolutely do that without children. But when you have kids, like I said, like you run out of space, and you have to deal with it, and you have to deal with it right now, because time moves so much more quickly when you have children, because they go from infants to toddlers to, you know, school age kids to adolescents to teenagers to adults really in a blink of an eye. And you only have so much time to address these things before they're off on their own. And it's like you kind of want to fit it in before you set them free.
But you know what? A lot of people don't. The ones who keep struggling and struggling and struggling, they're not surrendering to the process. Right. It's part of the messiness in where you're going to find yourself. But with such short maternity leaves, so many external factors that are weighing in, you can't even have peace. You know, we have an app for how many times the baby peed, pooped, fed, slept, turned, smiled, you know, that you're looking at the app and you're not looking at the baby. Yeah. You're just, you know, looking at this. And I would talk to moms, and they're like, well, this is how many times, you know, it's like it's a Excel sheet. Yeah. But then you're never going to learn to read your baby. Your baby's not looking at you, and you guys aren't syncing. Right. And then you're missing it. And then you never connect, and then life passes by, and then it just doesn't click, and you're like, something's missing. I don't know. The whole part was to look at your baby, learn the language, you know, grow together and not know what to do. And all of a sudden, randomly, you are just sitting there, and you're like, I'm just sitting here. I didn't do anything all day. What did I do today? Nothing. I didn't even take a shower. And then after a couple of days, and you're just sitting there, and all of a sudden you have this light bulb moment. And then you start reading, or you start connecting with different people, and then just things fall into place. And I think that part, that hard part, we have to go through. And it's almost like the rite of passage for mothers to get out of this troublesome, hard part. Yeah. Where it's so hard. But then when you get out of it, then you're so strong, and then you find your purpose. And just like you're coming up on top of the mountain, and you're like, okay, now I'm finally here. Yeah. Now I know what I want to do. Now I know who I am. And a lot of people don't get to that because they don't go through the whole part, you know?
Right, right. And like you were saying, they don't surrender, they don't allow the process to happen, and they spend so much time just fighting against it, which makes it so much harder for themselves and for their family, right? For that connection between them and their children. It can make it so much harder.
There was a mom that I was talking to, and she had 3 kids, and they were a little bit older. And she said, I think they were 5, 7, and 9. And she said, for the first time, I was with them for a whole week alone. And this is the first time I ever had that. They're both, she was a working mom. And she said that for the first time at the end of the week, I was like, wow, I can do this. Isn't that, it was almost sad because it's like, that's after 9 years, then you had that confidence like, hey, I can do this mom thing because you had a week to be with them. And she said, before I was so busy, and part of it was that I didn't trust myself. Part of it was that I didn't think I thought I was going to mess up as a mom. So I would hand them over to other people. But when I had them for a whole week and there was no other way during COVID and I had to be with them, my husband wasn't here, I did it. And I feel so empowered.
Why do you think women have that fear? That's a question for any of you guys. Like, why?
I think it has to do with like our purpose in life. When we're younger, our purpose is usually to like study, something with studies. And then like from our generation, kind of it was, you know, you want to be able to support yourself, make sure you study. I don't know, that's what girls in my area and stuff were told. Like you don't want to have to fall back on your husband. You want to make sure that you have something for yourself, so you want to do studies. But then after that, and then you get married, and then you have a kid, and then the things that interest you are different than the things that interest you before. And whatever it was that you were studying before is probably not applicable to children. If you studied science or math or whatever, it's not applicable to children. You can't really apply it there. And then you kind of feel this, I don't know, this dissonance that like, I want to like something else, but I don't know what to like. And then you kind of wonder, who am I then? If this thing that I've dedicated, I don't know, 5, 8 years, whatever amount of years you've dedicated to whatever you were studying, if this thing is not who I am, then who am I? And who am I going to be for my child? Who is my child going to think of when they think of me? Like, what are they going to think about me? And I feel like that is probably a cause.
Yeah, it makes sense. I believe so. That makes sense. That the millennials, because I think we all are millennials. So if we just talk about ourselves, we were taught read, study, right? And professionalism, or have a career or don't have a career. But if something goes bad in your marriage, because I came from that background, that you're supposed to get married. Ultimately, marriage is the goal. Right. But you should be educated enough so that when you get married and the marriage does not work and it fails, you have your own self to support. You have a degree to support yourself. Yeah. And you nailed it there when you said that our interests are totally outside of birthing and raising children and, being kind, caring, nurturing people. Because I felt, and I still feel, that even though I came from a single parent's tarbiyah, and she was loving and she was extremely affectionate and overcompensating. She was overcompensating, which actually debilitated my strengths to be my own self. I always used to fall back onto her, or I always used to feel that somebody else is supposed to take care of me, which bled into my marriage and then into my motherhood as well. But what I want to say is, like, it's a very selfish idea of raising a human being. How can you separate? If you are saying that you are going to be a childbearer or you are going to lead the ummah, if you're telling women this, because we're talking about women, so the predicaments that I see is, You tell a woman, a young girl from a very young age, you have to be smart, confident, educated, and then inshallah, one day you'll fall in love, because that's what all the movies and all the dramas and everything said, that your soulmate is somewhere out there, and then you do fall in love, or you don't fall in love, but you fall in love with this idea of making a home, and you want to have children, and then you have children. Allah blesses you with that. When did we prepare ourselves to be unconditionally loving? I did not know what unconditional love was. I had no idea.
No, yeah.
I had no idea. I had no patience. I thought I was the most important person, but I did not know how to actually take care of myself, and I did not take care of my children. What was like? Do you see the dilemma? We're so lost in these mixed messages that you need to do this, but who is it? Like Shanila said, who is it serving? Who is it serving? It's not serving me. As a woman, I was none of the messages served me.
And that's a kind of like a running theme when it comes to like parent coaching. Parents have these ideas and these goals for their children when almost nothing of what they're doing right now aligns with those goals. So it's like, do this and do this and do this in your future, but right now we're not going to help you in any way do that, but not intentionally. They're not doing it intentionally, but they're like Miriam was saying, there's this cognitive dissonance of how one thing leads to another. Like there's no long-term view of how what we're doing now affects their future. And so that's the vision that needs to change. But also let's talk about the evolution of women here really quickly too, because we're talking about women, and I had so many women in my life too that when I was little, it was like, oh, don't rely on a man, make sure you have a job, make sure you have a backup plan. And this is coming from women who the generation before them was raising them to relying on men. So what does that tell you? You know, like this generation of women heard many horror stories
or experienced it themselves.
But I'm wondering if like the women older than them or whatever, and then also of course personal experience, just that you need to have a backup plan. And because they started off in the position of not having any power, not having any say. I mean, you know, even when we talk about just women's rights in our own country, they're fairly new. Yeah. They're fairly new. So it's like, we've really come a long way just one generation later. But what does this mean for this next generation? What are we teaching the next generation when it comes to marriage and family and how to prepare for their future then?
There needs to be a balance, honestly. Retaliation or submission. Why are we given only these two options?
Right.
Either retaliate to the system or submit to it. Why is there not a third understanding, which is a Sunnah understanding? Know your religion, know your rights, advocate them, make yourself confident enough, be confident in yourself. The women need to support their women, the mothers need to support their daughters with the understanding of, you know what? And I was writing this poem in Urdu, and I will post it. And I was like, why do women not understand that? Or maybe they do, but they don't see another way out. And that's why we keep pushing the same agenda. Either we are victims or we victimize.
Right.
Where is this going to break? Like you said it, those women who were raising us, I said I came from a single parent. I saw the horrors in my mother's marriage. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that she was freed from that kind of abuse early on in our childhood. And, you know, we were raised by a very strong, confident woman, but that same strong, confident woman told me that your worth is in the man that you marry. What happened? And it was I who had to unlearn myself. Right. Alhamdulillah, I got a good man who was able to, not even tolerate, who was able to digest me.
Hold on to you.
I'm like, wait. May Allah bless him. But no, I really, and I asked my mother, I was like, from a woman who's so independent, who paid all her bills, who paid our tuition fees, who sent us to top colleges, universities, who gave us cell phones and gadgets when even fathers weren't able to afford it for their girls or their boys. You put this idea in my head that my worth is in my husband's liking. Right. Why did you do that? And she said, because I wanted you to have an easy life.
Exactly. Where's the connection there? So like, for us now with 3 girls, it's keep your options open. Anything that we talk about is like open ended. Yeah, if you want to have kids, yeah, if you choose to get married. And I feel like just by putting it that way and not having them feel forced in either direction, then life will just kind of follow its own path, right? Then they're able to think about their passions and their goals and things first. And then when the time is right, when the opportunity comes along, they're not against it, but they don't feel pressured to get into it. So it's like, at this point, it's kind of lay off, just set their foundation. Don't worry about who they're going to marry when they're 6 years old. Don't worry about any of that right now. Just focus on who they are now. Let them have fun, keep their options open, follow their passions, all of those things. Let them be these human beings without even considering any of that stuff, when that's so like, there's a Muslim culture, but even in American culture, I mean, kids are 4 and 5 years old. Like, oh, is that your boyfriend? Is that your girlfriend?
God. I have so many thoughts on that.
So many. Like, and it's so common. It's like just the most ridiculous thing that's when, as soon as a child is born, it's always, okay, what are you going to do when you're 30? Like, why? Who cares? What do you mean?
Ask me when I was 30, I had no clue what I was doing.
Right.
Iram, you said was so important, in that there was a book that I had. It said, I don't know who the author, but it said you could be the happiest woman in the world. It's an Islamic book, but all the issues that we have is that there is a path. We believe that Islam has all the answers on how to live a good life, whether you're a man, a woman, a child, an adult, a mom. And when we go astray from that, we're going to have issues. Mm-hmm. When we go back to it, when we go back to the core, not what we grew up with, not what we heard, not what our grandparents told us, what's actually in the book, what's actually in the Quran and in the Sunnah. I think one of the responsibilities that we have is to go back to that, mm-hmm. and see what is our role, what are we supposed to do, what isn't, what aren't we supposed to do, where is the wisdom in these things. Yeah. And then talk to our kids about them and learn with them and say, and just have discussions. Like, for example, my mom was also like, I heard her talking to different women saying that, so what are you doing these days? Do you have a degree? Do you have something, just in case if you had to fall back on that? And then I'm like, well, Islamically, the husband should take care of the wife. So you know what? That's what I'm banking on. Even though I did those things just in case. I mean, I didn't do it just in case. I did it just because I wanted to. So I didn't have the pressure of, oh my gosh, just in case I should do something. Or I didn't have the pressure of, I need to have a degree so I could have a job, so I can save money, so I can buy a house. I was just really carefree. I was like, oh, I'm just going to do what I like, do what I feel like, whatever I feel like I can serve in whatever field. And at the same time, I'll have a husband who takes care of me. I don't have to worry about the bills. But then there are instances, obviously, we don't live in an Islamic state where I'm always going to be taken care of. So there are those times where, okay, just in case, you should know how to do this, you should know how to do that, which is important too. And even my husband would be like, okay, I need you to do this. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. Why don't you do it? And he's telling me that, you should know how to do these things. And I'm just like, but I don't want to. That's what you're supposed to do. And it's really hard to go ahead and do that. Or now I'm learning and I'm just like, wait a minute, why didn't we do XYZ before? And I had that expectation that my husband's going to know it all, but he didn't know it all. Yeah. And so now there are certain things that we're learning together, like, for example, investing. And I'm like, how come you didn't invest before? And that's something that we're supposed to do. And then so now we're learning about it together and doing that.
Yeah.
So I can't expect my husband to know everything.
Yeah, I mean, his journey is the same. Like, he's born, then he grows up, then he's in the same society, he's in the same college, university, he's learning how, like, why so much expectation put onto him. How can he suddenly become all wise just because?
Exactly. I think they weren't even, like you said, they weren't raised. How were they raised? You know, and they went through the same process we did: high school, college, go to work, you know, save, just learn the same way that we did. But one of the things that I definitely want to do and instill in my daughter is, okay, if you don't know, let's go back to the Quran and Sunnah and just look at the source and see what it's supposed to be. What is the wisdom behind different things? Like, for example, why do we need, if you're a witness,
why do we need two women witnesses?
Why, for men, you know, there could be, oh, you only need one witness, but for women, there just needs to be two of them. And somebody might say, hey, that's not fair. Oh, you don't think that women are going to remember, or like, you know, they're not trusted, but it's actually to protect women. Right. And there is so much privilege. And the more I learned about women in Islam, the more I was like, wow, actually, I think Allah favors women. You know, Allah really favors us because we have so many privileges.
Yeah. I didn't know that about the why we needed two witnesses. Mm-hmm. That is interesting fact. Where can I learn more about this stuff?
I know, Iram, if you don't have any sources.
But I mean, we learned it. I learned it in Surah Baqarah, the last ayahs of Surah Baqarah. It talks about business and it talks about witnesses. So we learned through tafsir, just
okay.
Yeah. And so you know, when I first got married, my mom gave me these CDs, and they were the entire, from cover to cover, it was like the entire meaning of the Quran. Like, so someone's talking about it, she's summarizing parts of it, and then she's relating it to how it's relevant to us now. So she had the whole thing, and I was like, you know what? I started in Ramadan. I said that, you know what? Every day for 20 minutes, I'm just going to listen. Yeah. And I went through the whole Quran, and this was from Al-Huda.
Yeah.
And so she was talking in English, and it was so, and I think it's online.
I was going to go look it up. Yeah.
So it was so interesting because I was just like, you know, they would read a particular verse, then they would talk about what happened at that time, put it into context, and then say, okay, so now how is this going to help us? How is this related to something that we would do? Okay, so imagine this. It's kind of similar to that. And that really made a lot of sense. I think it was the first time where I'm like, wow, now I understand it. Now I'm taking all the culture and the, you know, you don't know what's true or not. You're just taking all the fluff out and you're just looking at it in its pure form.
Yeah. That sounds really helpful, because a lot of people kind of just make up reasons because they don't know. Instead of saying, I don't know, let's go look it up.
Or we just kind of go by what we think.
Yeah.
What makes sense to us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain things that may not make sense to us, but when we read about it and we're like, well, why does Islam say this? I don't know if it's true. I don't know why it's such a big deal. But then when you read their explanation about it, they're like, wow, there's just so much wisdom in this. I didn't know. And it makes our life as women, I feel, more enriched when we know about our own rights.
Yeah.
Right? And so many things that people look at as oppressive, and it's the opposite, and you just feel so empowered.
There are two understandings to this. If I have been in the company that has already made up the idea that Quran or the sayings or the people who are teaching Quran are suppressive, it will be very difficult to actually gain this understanding of deen. Really, it will become difficult. This is the most amusing part to me, that there are a billion population, and every person who's reading and understanding Quran is getting their own interpretation, and their heart opens to certain segments and it does not open to everything. And it's truly a blessing when your heart opens to the Quran. You become such an easy person, because in my mind, and that is my understanding, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow me to increase in my understanding. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, Allah knows best. But if Prophet ﷺ said that deen is about ease, then Allah allow me to see ease in what you're asking of me or what you're telling me. That is one of my du'as, because otherwise we are so bombarded with so much information. And it's just like, okay, I like the sound of it, I'll go with this. I like the sound of it, I'll go with this. And then you're just lost. And I think empowerment also means the idea to sit with a notion, go back and forth, remove the ego from it, understand it, develop it, and then inshallah follow it through. And it's a process, and life is too short to sit on every single thing. So so a good set of tribe of people who can direct you is extremely important. My one of my life lessons is that I wasted so many years thinking I'm good enough for myself, and not seeking the right kind of people to be surrounded by.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I think I had lost faith in the fact that people have information that I should be seeking. I think there was a long time where I just felt like people were not reliable or trustworthy, and it took a long time to come back around and see that that's just not true, that people have so much to offer and there are so many different places that you can learn things from. I still struggle sometimes with people who have been told to me like this person's an authority. Immediately I'm skeptical of them. Immediately, like, you have to prove yourself to me 10 times more now because I don't know about this. So I'm working on it.
what do you guys think about the question that we asked? How has your notion changed of what it means to be a woman now that you're a parent?
I don't know. I think the answers that Shanila got kind of summarize what I feel too. I think that having kids, and it took until my third child, and we went through fertility treatments and everything. So we went through a lot, but it took until the third one to finally have an appreciation for what my body was actually going through. Like, for me, I was just kind of going through the motions. Like, it was just happening. I didn't take the time to really appreciate it. But to see what my body could do, I had a heart murmur. I had, we talked about my whole birth story too. Like, all these things are happening. And then a little while later, it's just all behind me and moving on. Hello, everything's fine. The kids are fine. And then you're just kind of constantly adjusting to life. It's kind of an incredible thing.
I feel like it's a privilege, really. The more I learned about women in Islam, it's a privilege to be a woman, a Muslim woman.
And a parent?
Mm-hmm. Do you think that if you didn't have kids, you would be so willing to learn about what it means to be a woman in Islam? Do you think that having a daughter has influenced you to look into it more?
I think I would have been more interested in knowing, okay, well, now I can't be a mom, so what else can I do? And we have an example, like I would, we have examples in the mothers of the believers. There were some who were mothers. There's, we have one who wasn't, Aisha radiallahu anha. So we know that we could still do great things and contribute. Probably more because they have more time.
Yeah,
they have more time. Yeah, exactly. One of the greatest hufaz, she has passed away. May Allah have mercy on her. In Egypt, she never had children, but she gave hufaz to the haram. The people, the reciters who recite in the haram, they're shuyukh now, big shuyukh. They actually learned from her. And she said this in her life story. She said that I am blessed to not be a biological mother, because this blessing that came to me to raise such scholars would not have been possible, because I would have been so smitten by my own responsibilities, but taking care of my own children. Hundreds and hundreds of scholars through her hand. Allah chose her. Aisha radiallahu anha is a beautiful example. Hafsa radiallahu anha is a beautiful example. Safiya radiallahu anha is a beautiful example. All of these, they were young girls when Prophet ﷺ passed away. They were 19, 20, 21, and they lived on 50 years of almost after the passing of Prophet ﷺ. What did they give to the deen? They gave the ahadith, and they gave knowledge, and they gave, beautiful, rich history. So everybody has their own path. Being from a single parent mother to being a mother of two daughters, to learning and unlearning what womanhood is about, what my duties are, what my responsibilities are, what my worth is, what my worth is. It's everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me the strength for. And understanding that strength is not anybody else's responsibility, it's mine. And if I am not working towards understanding my strengths and refining them and doing something good with my life, then it's nobody else's fault. Regardless, somebody told me my worth was in my husband, or my worth was in my marriage, or my worth was in my motherhood. I mean, of course, people are going to say stuff, and the society is made up of stuff. I think the whole struggle and the purpose of our being is to understand how we pave our path. Nobody's going to give me red carpet. What did I do to deserve red carpet?
My first thought when you asked that, Miriam, was like, I would be terrified of the person I would be without children, because I was so impatient and just unaware of myself and who I was. And I don't know if I had a desire or not to improve. So I wonder how much of it came from parenting, and I wonder how much of it came with age. So I don't know how it has affected, but I definitely think it's for the better. I think the children really pushed me hard and fast to make some significant improvements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, that I don't want to say like I would never have changed, but I was very self-absorbed before I had kids, and I was very ignorant to the way that a lot of things in the world is now and was back then. I was very ignorant to it because I was just all about myself. I would go to the gym, I would eat whatever I wanted. Our vegetable drawers were filled with snacks, and I just like lived my life. I didn't really care about anything. I didn't deal with any of the anger issues I had. I didn't deal with any of it, and I didn't care really about anybody else but myself, as bad as that sounds. So I don't know how to separate my view of what a woman is that I have now from what I had before. I do appreciate the fact that you don't have to have kids or get married to be a woman. And I don't know that I appreciated that fact before I had kids, or even in the early years of being a parent. I don't know that I appreciated that fact. Now, as a parent, I can appreciate the fact that, like you said, Seema, whatever it is that I want to do for self-improvement, like I have to make sure that's what I want to do, because I only have a limited amount of time to work on myself.
Yeah.
And so when I have goals, I will choose, like, there's a bunch of stuff I want to improve about myself, but I can only realistically work on like these few things. And the other ones are just going to have to wait till I've already dealt with these things. And then I can work on the other things, because I can't work on everything. And so I didn't appreciate the time, I guess, that I had. And I don't know that I ever thought that, you had to be a mom, and felt like all people had to be a mom. I didn't really feel that way, but I didn't really think too much about what it means to be a woman in society that doesn't have kids. If that makes sense.
I think that now, after having kids, I have more of an appreciation for women who don't have kids. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I think as growing up, it was just kind of assumed. Right. I never really, again, like you said, I didn't really think either way about it. Okay, I got married. Eventually, I'm going to have kids, and we're just going to, it wasn't really something I thought about. But then, I mean, there's, like you said, Aram, and there's all these women who have contributed so amazingly to society because they have all this time on their hands. It's not taken up by the children. Right. So like being a woman can be such an incredible, amazing, fantastic thing to do without children. And it's equally powerful.
Yeah. And as important to society.
I had 7 years, 7 years before I had kids. So those 7 years of just me and my husband, there were times where he was working and I was at home. I had the whole evening free. Can you imagine? The whole weekend free, where you're like, you know what, today I'm going to do this, or I'm going to just walk to the bookstore, meet up with a friend, have coffee, come back and just unwind. So I didn't appreciate those 7 years back then.
you just didn't know. You didn't know that you had to. Like we'd spent entire weekends just on the couch watching movies.
Right.
Doing
Playing
nothing else.
video
Ordering
games.
food and playing games, watching movies, ordering food, and leaving the mess till tomorrow.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I had all the time in the world to take care of that mess. It was amazing.
But one thing that I did would say that after kids, when somebody asked me, like, don't you want to leave them, or don't you want to just have your own time? And I was like, you know what? I did everything that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I guess for every person, Allah knows when is the right time, how much time you need, how your growth is going to happen with or without kids. And He gives us what we need.
Absolutely.
And, but back to one thing that you had said earlier, my favorite fairy tale was Cinderella. So a prince was going to come and save me, was just going to take me out of whatever, and he's going to give me this amazing lifestyle, and I'm going to live in a castle. And that's one thing that I changed, that I didn't want my daughter to think, even though it's just a story. But still, when you keep reading it over and over and over again, you don't realize that it's like you're chasing a guy.
Right.
And I wish that, I guess, my family and just in general, society at that time mentioned that, so then my parents could be like, hey, maybe, I never thought about that. I think now people are realizing things like that. Like, what is the real message of this book, or this, anything? What is,
people are just more vocal now than they were, and then the message gets spread a little bit faster that, this is not okay. What's going on here?
Benny, I was totally, I did not have any idea what the underlying message was. Like, seriously, I was brought to knowledge and information thanks to the age that we are in. I never, for me, it was just on face value. You're giving me whatever you're giving me, this is exactly this. There's no deep understanding to it. I was not that kind of a
planting
person.
seeds.
Yeah, I never thought about that stuff either. I watched the old Aladdin last year, I think, or the year before. Oh my God, it was so terrible. I couldn't even watch the whole thing because I was like, this is a terrible. Why did we love this movie so much? There's so much stuff in there. Like you said, I didn't look into anything other than face value. That's it.
Yeah.
So the recent win that I had with my daughter, and I was so proud. I was just like, wow, like, I'm so amazing. I did such an amazing job. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
That was a win. And I was just like, I was bragging about it, because this is bragging rights. My daughter came and asked me, she was like, what's Aladdin? And I was just like, oh, at least that's the one thing. I was just so happy. And I'm like, oh my God. Most people, I'm like, you can't even say that. They're going to be like, what kind of a mom are you? How come she doesn't know?
I know. My girls too. I am not a fan of Disney at all. I'm not a fan of Disney. I waited a really long time. So when they were little, they watched Frozen. And then even like after that, I'm like, I don't know, like the older movies especially, I'm just not a fan of how they portray women, how they portray cultures, how they just, all of that. I don't like it. Because even when it's like the whole now women empowerment stuff, it's just, I don't, parents die in every movie, first of all. Like, they kill off the parents in every single movie. Like, why is that necessary? But anyway, a whole thing. But Medina, my oldest, has recently gotten into like just discovering what they're about and like wanting to watch them. And so it's like, I don't want to not show her, but now I'm this annoying mother who's pausing it and be like, but this isn't right. Do you see this? Do you understand what's happening here?
which is good parenting.
Yeah,
it is good parenting.
So I'm like, if you want to watch it, we're gonna have to have some conversations. Like, so just so you know.
Alhamdulillah. I mean, we're trying at our best. Alhamdulillah. Yes, the answer is yes. Motherhood, because we're blessed with it, has made us wiser, kinder, and more goal-oriented. And the goal is not finite. It's not in degrees, and it's not. And we are actually your positive parenting coaches. You are emotional resilient coaches. You help women. We help women unblock their blocks, and so alhamdulillah, and we're taking the whole Sunnah understanding and Quran understanding. So yes, if I was not a mother, I wouldn't be sitting here with these awesome 3 other mothers and women, mashallah, tabarakallah. I wouldn't, like, I would have still been like sulking in the sofa somewhere, like, why did he say this to me and why did she say this to me, and my I wouldn't have had no ending to it. SubhanAllah, self-absorbed, selfish human.
Definitely.
That spiraled quickly, Aram.
And I was going to say that, like, it's also brought me closer to Allah, because everything was very superficial before I had kids, and now, like, nobody else sees anything that happens in the house, like, and I could do whatever, but it's definitely strengthened my relationship with Allah, because I have these little souls that Allah has entrusted me with, and I want us all to be in Jannah together. Before, it was just like, we're gonna go to hell anyway, that kind of
That's true. That's so true.
It's just me, and my family doesn't care about me, so we're gonna go to hell anyway. Now I feel like my goals are, at least a few goals have to do with, like, deen and my relationship with Allah. Every time I do redo goals, it's always having to do something with that. So that is something I've appreciated since I've become a parent.
I wish we could see. I wish there was a way to see the difference between, like, what parenting has done to affect how we are now and what just age has done.
Right. If we could see a different timeline.
Yeah.
I can still see it. Alhamdulillah. I can still see it, because I'm telling you, I wouldn't have changed unless I became a parent. The only reason that I changed was because I was a parent.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I see I'm telling you, the background that we grew up in. Sorry, you were saying something.
That's why Allah gave you kids right away.
Yeah, I was so bored of my husband. I wanted to have kids. I was like, I need something to do. What is this? Like, tell us. But then when I got them, I was like, oh my God, what did I ask? So first, I was not completing my degree. I said, get married. It will be happily ever after. Then I got married. I was like, no, I don't want this. Let's have kids. But then kids came, and I was like, no, this is not even fun.
And now she's on Instagram interviewing people, and she's found her passion in life.
Yeah, going viral on the news. Mashallah, she's out here making change.
Right. Shanila, did you have any other responses that we didn't get to?
I think one person had said, didn't believe motherhood was an honor. Now I know it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
And also, not to accept bad treatment. So maybe before, like, you know your worth, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to, I have boundaries, and I'm a person, and I'm going to take care of myself. And that's about it.
That's a good one, too, because as we're teaching our kids about their emotions, I feel like we're also learning about it, too, and how it relates to us. We're teaching our kids about boundaries, and we're learning about, okay, well, this is a boundary, and we're identifying ways in our life that we have not set up boundaries for ourselves. And then you kind of feel hypocritical, because you're like, oh, I'm teaching my kid that they need to have boundaries with this situation, and I'm not doing it. And then you end up self-improving.
Or because of your kids, because you're willing to do so much for your kids and you love them, that you're willing to set the boundary for them.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
Which takes you out of your comfort zone so often. Like we've talked about this in the past too, where I have to be the weirdo. I have to be the strange in-law sometimes, or the person who's like, okay, crazy. Like, you're not going to let not going to let me talk to your kid this way, or not. Sorry, I'm going to step in, when, pre-children, Seema would not have had the guts to stand up and to say something and to set those boundaries. I mean, so many awkward encounters when I was a teenager of things that were totally inappropriate, but just giggled and went along with it. Did not have the strength to do it. And then now having kids and wanting the kids to see, like, no means no. You don't have to be touched if you don't want to be touched. Boundaries in every single way are all yours to keep. And, if you can't do it, then let me know, and I'm going to do it for you until you're ready to do it, because learn that now so that you don't have these struggles as you get older.
I want to share an example, and you tell me what you understand from this, and if you agree with what I told my daughter. We were eating, we call it salan, basically a curry, and it had one piece of meat in it, right? And I was doing the dishes, and she says to me, you know what, Mama? Whenever there is one piece of meat left in the shorba, in the salan, I hear my grandma, Nano Johnny, my mom. Okay, I hear Mama saying, Nano Johnny saying, leave it for your brother. And I saw that in her plate, she did not put that piece of meat. And I said, Ramin, do you want to eat it? She said, no, I'm just saying that in my ear, I always hear Nano Johnny saying that. I said, Ramin, listen to me. He's not here. He's not eating food, and he's not hungry, and he's not expecting that. But you are here, you're putting it in your plate, and you're mentioning it. So I'm asking you, honestly, if you want to eat it, beta, you don't have to hear that sound. You have to do what you want to do, what you feel like doing, and knowing that it's okay to take my share. This is your risk. It's written, eat, beta. You don't have to feel guilty about it. And then I just went away. But later on, I saw her sitting on the dining table. I looked into the bowl, and she had taken that piece of meat. SubhanAllah.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
Our conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And little voices here and there,
Mm-hmm.
just little things that come up and you don't even realize why or where sometimes. Like if she wouldn't have said that to you,
Right.
I wouldn't have known.
You wouldn't have
I
even
wouldn't have
noticed.
known.
Shanila, you were going to say something.
No, I mean, what Iram had just said, that was one thing that didn't happen in my household. Growing up, I was the oldest girl, and I was actually given the most freedom. And I had 3 younger brothers, but I had the most freedom because I was the oldest.
Mm.
So there was no comparison like that, where it's like, oh, for your brother. But so because I was the only girl and I was given that responsibility, I tend to do that with my daughter. Not because she's a girl, but just because I know she's going to get it done. You know, or I'll say, and she's the oldest girl. So I do that sometimes, but then I realize, and I do that with both of my kids, the oldest son and the daughter. So the son, some things that I'm kind of training him on, for example, is when it's that time of month for me, I want him to make me breakfast. So then eventually when his sister has that time of month, then he's gonna make her breakfast too. They're gonna make sure that she's comfortable. You know, they all know what's going on. But also, there's something special about when you have a daughter. If it's one daughter or like 2 daughters, whatever it is. Like for me, she's kind of like the chocolate chip and the cookie.
That's a nice way to put it.
Brothers, where when you have so many brothers, it's just not the same without her. You know, she brings a different dynamic to I think every child does. And so certain things that she just innately does, where I'm just like, okay, tell your brothers this, or, can you make him breakfast, or can you do that, just because she's older, and just giving her that responsibility. But knowing that they take care of each other too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
When we have one thing that there's just so much tension between them is when we do have this feminism, this rise of feminism, where girl power, this and that, girls can do everything. What does that say? Like if a boy just reads all of that girl power everywhere. He doesn't have a shirt that says boy power. He doesn't have a shirt that says boys can do everything, that boys are the future. He just reads girls are the future. Girls can do anything. And that makes him be, I think my son, he used to feel like, you know what? No, they can't. I'm better than
my son says that too. Like, what about men? What about men?
Right, because there's that pendulum swing. Like for some reason we couldn't land in the middle. It went from, women are nothing to now women are everything and men suck.
Yeah. So that's how has to be. And he was to the point where he was like, oh, you know what? A boy growing up like that resent women.
Yes.
Because then they're like, oh, you think, oh, you can rock the world. Go ahead. Let me see you rock the world,
So how do you guys do that? Because I don't have boys. So as mothers of boys, how do you create the environment for them to support and empower women in a way that's not the major pendulum swing where they're not feeling less than, they're, they're contributing to feminism without having to feel like at the expense of themselves?
I think both Shanila and Mariam, they give examples of how they take care of them, like how they teach them to be empathetic. What I hear from both of them, and what I try to do. May Allah bless my son, mashallah. He is okay. They're like instill empathy, talk, communicate, because there's no other way they're going to know. There's no other way they're going to know. SubhanAllah. Like Bassam says this really famous phrase: "My wife is going to be perfect, and she's not going to complain about anything." And all three of us, we look at him and we are like, "Wait and watch. This is going to come in front of you. Yeah, you see, inshallah. We are teaching you to understand what women say and do and how they feel, because we don't want her to suffer at your hands." And sometimes Bassam gets really irritated and he says, "Mama, sometimes I think you love my wife more than you love me. You don't even know who she is."
It's a fine line, because we see this all the time, like they know that there's a girl power shirts. They see that. And then they just like, so I'm just like, that's not productive. It's just like somebody who had daddy issues is going to be so empowered, and they're just going to say that, well, to prove to the whole world that, girls are worth as much as men are, which is wrong, because women have their own worth and men have their own worth. Absolutely. So for my boys, I have to show them people in Islamic history, men, and how they were men, but they were soft, they were vulnerable. What did they do? What makes a man a man? Because you're going to be a man one day. Just, and nothing subjective like that. And then what's a woman? Look at all these women in history. And like Sakina took a Sira class from Qalam Institute, and the teacher in there, she was talking about the Prophet's grandparents, the grandma and the great grandma, and how that came about. And just in that story, she felt empowered as a girl.
Yeah.
And without saying anything, without telling them that, what, you can do anything you want. She already saw that. So I think bringing that back, so then she even has an expectation of what Muslim men should do or should be like.
Yeah. And, I was really happy that my friend brought that to my attention about the t-shirts and the thing. Because again, I'm not looking at the boys section. We're not really, I'm sometimes for t-shirts and stuff every once in a while, but I didn't see that difference so much, or it just wasn't brought to my attention. Then one time, one of my friends, she brought it up, and she's like, it's really hard because, there aren't like these boy empowerment shirts either. And I was like, man, like I have so many little boys that I love, like so many of my friends have these little boys and stuff, and that's really hurtful. So I purposely, since she pointed it out, I've stopped buying those kinds of shirts for the girls, trying to maintain balance of empowering them without, not at the expense of boys, because we have so many boys and men that we love and admire and appreciate. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to one up them. We're trying to be on an even playing field.
Because those boys don't know the history of, they don't know.
Right, exactly.
The patriarchy, they don't know.
Yeah, their timeline is just starting.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know that I do anything extra. I mean, I guess I do teach them empathy, and we do a lot of read alouds, and we will talk about how this character feels. And I don't just pick like the main characters are boys or girls. And my oldest son, he loves audiobooks, so he will just pick random audiobooks that, he has a whole list of them on Libby that he gets from the library, and he'll just keep listening to them while he cleans better when he listens to books. So he will like put on his headphones and he'll like go and clean the bathroom, and he will do a much better job than if he was just doing it by him on his own. So, I mean, that's really the only thing. I don't buy them shirts with like a bunch of words and designs usually. If it is, it's usually about food. Because my kids love food. But I try to just get plain stuff because a lot of them have faces and stuff on it. And then if they, well, before pandemic, if they went to the masjid, if that was the shirt they wanted to wear, and I'm like, you can't wear that to the masjid. It has a face on it. So I just avoid all of that. I try to just do food stuff or no design. I don't know that I do anything different right now. We talk about a lot of stuff, and my husband talks about a lot of stuff too. And I don't know if there's anything special.
It is all special. It's all going to come together, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah, this will just make dua for Bassam. May Allah find him his perfect life.
His perfect life.
Right. And I've spent so much time with your boys, and I see how you speak to them and just the awareness of them and boundaries and empathy, but like verbalizing emotions and acknowledging emotions and all of that is hard work. And that's the work that needs to be done. So I
think empowering our boys.
Mm-hmm.
I think I really like that job right now. Before I was like, I have 3 boys. I should have, like, I'm a girl mom. Why didn't I just have 3 girls? And then you don't know what Allah, when He gives you whatever you have for a reason, and I'm really loving teaching my boys how, and like just this whole process of, you have a huge responsibility, and having both of them, like separately, empowering them into who they're going to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have a very funny example. we were on a trip, my husband and I, and there was this older lady, and she was holding a bag, and for some reason they did not connect the plane, with those straps that they connect with, and you walk into the airport. We had to come down the stairs, and she was carrying something, and I told my husband, help her, and my husband got scared, and he was like, no, I'm not going to ask her. She's going to shove me away, and she's going to say, I can handle my own weight. And I was like, how can you even say, men's chivalry is dead, okay? If you are not, hello, she's not going to appreciate that I'm going to tell her to, like, and I was like, are you serious? And that made me thinking about this whole, that what's the term that you use, Seema? The pendulum swing, like when.
Yeah.
I did not, of course, this is me. Of course, when did I ever listen to my husband? So I went ahead and I asked the lady, and she said, yeah, sure, you can help me. And I looked at my husband like, and he was like, because you're a woman. Because you're a woman. Try me sometime again.
That's interesting. I didn't even consider that like men would be scared to be more caring to other people because they're not sure how it's going to be received. Interesting.
Yeah. How do you think? Do you think that there's truth to it?
Yeah, I imagine there is. Yeah, especially if one person has to tell them, no, I can handle it myself, for them to remember that one person.
And to never want to do it again.
Yeah, and to never want to do it again, yeah.
Because it could go either way. Some women are very, very offended, and then other women are so not used to it, they take it as flirting.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I'm always, my husband is a very, very nice person, and I do have to remind him, I'm like, hey, don't be so nice all the time. Listen, not everybody understands what's happening here.
Or you just have him wear the nice guy shirt. I'm just a nice guy.
That's a good idea. I should do that. All right, we've been on about an hour. I love
this conversation, mashallah. It was a wonderful conversation. I really loved it, enjoyed it, mashallah.
It was. Thank you, Aram, for this idea. I think it's a really good idea to have us come together for Women's Day.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair to everybody. Again, like I said, if I was not a parent, I wouldn't have appreciated motherhood. I wouldn't have appreciated womanhood, and I wouldn't have found you all as my tribe. So alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah for everything that has happened. I'm at a very grateful place.
Alhamdulillah.
Me too. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us on this special episode of Moonlit Conversations, all about being a woman for Women's Day. And please remember to follow this page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also follow us on Instagram, and always leave us messages, come up with ideas for future shows. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
She came just from Pilates, people. She had her own session.